Welcome to our panel. I'm really honored to be here. This has been a wonderful opportunity. I'd like to thank Professor Mustafa Shaheen, for organizing the whole conference, and also Morehouse University. I'm just very pleased to be here. I would love it if my own son could attend here. So let me go ahead and begin. My paper is called Hizmet and the Challenges of Altruism, and this is like a funny movie. Okay. Okay, Hizmet and the Challenges of Altruism and Peace Building in the U.S. So slide 2. So let me talk about, let me read a couple quotes by Fethullah Gulen. They do not eat. They feed others. You have to click again. They do not live for themselves. They enable others to live. And so that's Fethullah Gulen's statements regarding ideal Muslims. You can click one more time. Thanks. Also, only those who overflow with love will be able to build the happy and enlightened world of the future. This paper considers the possibilities and impact of the diasporic experience on the Hizmet movement in the U.S. Slide 3. After bloody images of an ISIS militant graphically beheading American citizen Jane Foley in 2014, U.S. branches of Hizmet organizations released images of their charities, Kimsi Yokmu and Embrace Relief, building a well in Uganda in Foley's memory. Hizmet, which means service in Turkish, is a Sufi Muslim civil society humanitarian organization that arose in Turkey, also known as the Gülen movement. Included in the news item was a statement by Foley's father, who attended the dedication ceremony. He said, "I can't tell you how wonderful a gift the well is, because it brings life to so many who have so little, and this is what Jim's all about." He added, I can't think of a more warm and meaningful evening than this, in which love has been stressed as a guiding principle for our international dealings and faith in God, whomever you wish to call it, Muslim, Catholic, Protestant, Baptist. So that was John Foley, James Foley's father. In an interview, Hizmet's inspirational figure, Fethullah Gulen, stated that ISIS defiles the name of Islam and that militants are suffering from, quote, a mass psychosis. After each act of terror carried out by a Muslim group, Hizmet in the U.S. systematically issues messages condemning the violence and expressing sympathy for the families of those involved. Clearly, while in the U.S., Hizmet wants and needs to offer an alternative image of Islam, one of empathy and compassion, which is authentic Islam, to contrast with the horrific ones too often broadcast from our television screens. To maneuver in the highly Islamophobic environment of post-9/11 United States, Hizmet has worked hard to promote tolerance of Islam and Islamic institutions and an understanding of the faith and of Hizmet as having nothing in common with groups like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab. The very names of some of its US-based venues convey this. So you have Peace Islands, there's also Tolerance Foundation, Institute for Interfaith Dialogue, etc. Hizmet activists who espouse a progressive Sufi form of Islam challenge the global influence of extremist forms of Islam. Expressions of sympathy and responding to violence with kindness are also simply manifestations of participants' faith. Hizmet's the largest Islamic outreach movement in the world today, and it has hundreds, thousands really, thousands in the world, at the very minimum, hundreds of educational, cultural, media, and business institutions in the United States alone. The influence of this group, demonstrated by their humanitarian accomplishments in Turkey and rapid accomplishments in the United States and rapid expansion in the United States abroad, have challenged the primacy of the Kemalist elite in the past, and currently President Erdogan's ruling AK party. Reflective of his apprehension vis-a-vis Hizmet's role, Erdogan has called them a state within a state and shut down many of their institutions in Turkey and abroad this year and last year, apparently deeming them a principal threat to his authority, and he likes authority, in Turkey. Despite his aggression towards the movement, Fethullah Gülen has said to me that he holds no enmity towards Erdogan at all. So Fethullah Gülen has a quote here regarding the ideal human. They dream of being beneficial to people. They feel sincerely in the depths of their spirits the agony and depression of others. They adopt a welcoming stance to whoever visits them, listening to their problems and grieving for them. They seek out the grief-stricken ones and rush with people who share the same passion to relieve the pain of others. At times they bravely face difficulties and plant roses with determination. Even in the midst of thorns, they are constantly singing of roses. This study shed light on Hizmet's activity in the U.S., interfaith, charitable, cultural, and educational. The dynamic processes by which it tries to gently sway American culture and society and beyond towards an appreciation of Islam, Anatolian culture, and currently tries to stay firm against the Erdogan-led Turkish government involved in the repression of Hizmet institutions and obstruction of Hizmet activities in Turkey and abroad, including in the United States. Towards that goal, my ethnographic research has included collecting interviews from participants and those who have come into contact with them. I've used participation observation techniques, and I've visited Hizmet institutions in 10 states in the United States, 10 US states, and also in 12 different countries. Slide 5. So diasporas, because the movement in the United States, we can consider that a diasporic movement. They've had an impact on the politics both in the host country and in the homeland. As Basser and Swain puts it, diasporas matter. Helen Rose Iba looks at religious transnationalism and addresses the concept of religious remittances sent by the migrant home, such as changes in religious practice and gender roles. So what Hizmet does here can impact the Turkish the Turkish political and social religious landscape back, home. And also what happens there also impacts what the movement does here. She considers, certainly, Hizmet's projects outside of Turkey have had an influence on communal relations in the homeland and at the global level. Even the AK party-led government doesn't have the outreach, the international outreach, as Hizmet does. While some diasporic groups have at times contributed to ongoing conflicts in their countries of origin, others have served as mediators and peacemakers while abroad. The experience of diaspora can allow communal groups, neither monolithic nor static, to attain different perspectives on a given conflict. This is made possible because of distance from historical sites of sectarian conflict, from interference from the Turkish government, and the rampant paranoia of the Turkish socio-political environment, and from new perspectives gained from interactions with the other, from the Armenian, Kurdish, Jewish communities in the US. Slide 6. Okay, so I interviewed a woman, and she said to me in California, she said, we had an iftar dinner, which is the evening meal during the month of Ramadan, with Armenians living in Southern California. That was very meaningful for me. I never would have been able to do that in Turkey. We realize the issues that face us more here. We even included a replica of the church from the city of Van in Turkey in the Anatolian Cultures and Food Festival. This city is significant for the Armenian community. This is a starting point. I feel good about that. We want to help the peace process. Maybe many Turkish nationalists wouldn't like what we do. We are liberal, we have an interfaith focus, and actually we also just had an iftar a few days ago with the Jewish temple. We try to find ways to reach out to people. Okay. Let's go to slide 8. I think you have to click again. And one more time. Okay, so Hizmet versus the Turkish concept. Hizmet believes that, so just really quickly, for Hizmet, homogeneity is not a virtue. Okay, Hizmet is a very pluralistic group. But in the Turkish context, there's a problem. So I have up there, while minority groups thrived in Anatolia during the Ottoman Empire and were treated relatively well, the rise of exclusive nationalism before and after the 1923 founding of Ataturk's Turkish Republic witnessed homogenizing, oppressive, and at times violent state-building processes. And then, of course, there's that horrible quote by Mahmud Esad Bozkurt, who was the Ataturk's justice minister, and he says, this is very horrible, those who are not of pure, I hate the word pure, by the way, none of you are pure, none of us are, I am not a pure anything, I am very hybrid. In fact, my brother did his DNA for myself and my siblings. I found out that I am 5% African American, very proud to be so. I'm also 5% indigenous, and I'm a bunch of other stuff, all right? I'm just wanting to say that when I hear the word pure, it presses a button. It presses a button. Watch out for those that tell you, I'm a pure. That's not a friendly thing to say. Okay, so, well, let's go back to finish that quote. He says, those who are not of pure Turkish stock can have only one right in this country, the right to be servants or slaves. You're pure or you're a servant. You see why I'm so proud not to be pure? Okay, let's go ahead. Next slide. Good. Okay, so here just to give you this glance. So the Ataturk is the one who had those state engineering processes, and right now, actually, President Erdogan is also. While he has made minor concessions to the Kurds, etc., one really shouldn't trust him given that he has canceled Twitter, YouTube, thrown people in prison for doing nothing. And so, yes, so they both fall under repressive of the other category, all right? So, despite America's sins towards its minority peoples, Fethullah Gulen recently conveyed to me that he admires the relative cohesiveness and harmony of the American social fabric. And so that might surprise you after our Ferguson riots, right? But, yes, right? But, I mean, we have to compare it to that quote that I just read to you. We have to compare it to the social engineering projects that happen in Turkey. But it's kind of nice. He really seemed to like what we have here. So, as he said that as compared to the sectarian conflict in Turkey and in the Middle East. Okay. So he also spoke highly of our constitution and judicial system. Participants have taken the opportunity while in the U.S. to try to heal long-standing wounds between Turks on the one hand and Armenians and Kurds on the other. They've also done well to create a lot of goodwill in the Jewish American community. While Israel was pummeling the Gaza Strip in 2014, leading to the deaths of over 2,000 mainly Muslim Palestinian people, including women and children, Hizmet held peaceful interfaith events, insisting on continuing dialogue with Jewish Americans. Their slogan, to turn walls into tables, is realized through a multitude of events, educational, interfaith, cultural, bringing different groups to talk, learn, and almost always eat. Okay, so just leave it right there. Okay, so their efforts towards this goal are not always welcome. Let's leave that there. The term the paradox of altruism suggests that altruistic acts are ultimately prompted by ulterior motives, such as conversion, reciprocity, or a demonstration of strength. Certainly others have been very suspicious of Hizmet's motives in reaching out. Churchill and Street, however, have pointed out that altruists have highly developed compassion and empathy, and that their deeds cannot be reduced as self-serving. Some Kurds and Armenians in the U.S. remain deeply suspicious of Hizmet's projects, distrusting Turks in general because of their respective experiences as minorities in Turkey. The collective trauma of the 1915 massacre of Armenians has made reconciliation difficult. Other groups in the U.S. that have harbored suspicions of Hizmet includes ultranationalist Jews, some of whom fear that Hizmet is trying to spread radical Islam, threatening the state of Israel, and certain evangelical Christians, this maybe you didn't know, who have posited Turkey as the site of the emergence of the Antichrist. Did you know that? Some who claim could be Gülen. Gülen himself, according to these groups, could be the Antichrist. Okay, so pervasive Islamophobia. And this is what this is about here. In America, worsened by the atrocities carried out by ISIS, etc. So let's go back to that slide. Actually, sorry, it must be a little, that's all right. Have challenged Hizmet's ability to operate, but not seriously impede it thus far. A 2009 Gallup poll found that 43% of Americans feel at least some prejudice against Muslims. That's about almost half. Okay? So how does that, what about Turks? Many Americans have long held antagonistic views towards Turks in particular. The stereotype of the terrible Turk, and here you have the flyer for the Midnight Express. This has hurt Turkish immigrants' ability to assimilate and to find employment. Turks were thought of those who had fought Christianity and who had raped and ravaged Europe. Calvinist Americans who traveled to the Middle East in the 1800s on missionary trips, those trips were aimed towards converting Jews, Christians, and Muslims. They returned and they tried to spread negative portrayals of Muslims in that region. They were no doubt frustrated with the difficulty of their project, but also worried that the Antichrist, Gog, hearkened from the Ottoman Empire, and thus that Turks were working for the Antichrist. So preachers made reference to that great dog, quote, that great dog, the Turk, and spoke of Turks, I'm very sorry, as brutal, dirty, blood-drinking, and on the path to wipe out 1/3 of humanity, and devoid of all the values Americans cherish. So I mean, you see, so I don't have much time left. You see that there's a challenge. There's a great challenge that Hizmet has in its activities here while in diaspora. It has to combat, anti-Muslim sentiment, anti-Turkish sentiment, and also it has to try gently but assertively to reconcile with the groups that historically have had conflicts with them in Turkey. And so how do they do that? Now we can go to the next and one of my last slides. So the Pacifica Institute is one of the multitude of cultural dialogue festivals, the culture and dialogue centers. And the Pacifica Institute that I go to, it has many branches, but one's in Irvine, one's in Los Angeles. And they put on every year an Anatolian Cultures and Food Festival. If there's any graduate students here, somebody needs to do their PhD thesis on this festival, please. So during this festival is a microcosm. So much is happening at this festival. And one of the things that's happening is that there's an opportunity for the movement to show Americans that Muslims have fun, they dance, that Islam is a positive religion, but they also take the opportunity to reconcile with the Kurdish community, with the Armenian community, with the Jewish community. So here's a slide that gives you some information in terms of what they've done towards a reconciliation with the Armenian community. Just briefly, they even included a miniature church from a city called Van with a large Armenian population. They had an Armenian singer. Let's go to the next slide, and I'll just wrap myself up. We can skip this slide, or you can just go to the next one. So in terms of the Kurds, just keep going. Yeah, so at the same festival, there was a lecture on the Kurdish issue in Turkey, and so that was Ömer Taşpınar, titled Turkey and the Kurdish Question. I want to point out that Gülen has strongly emphasized that Kurdish should be taught as a part of the state curriculum in Turkey and in Iraq. Okay, so were I to have more time, of course I would talk about the Jewish issue. So we'll just go to the next to last slide. You can keep going. Okay, yes, so here, right there. So now I'll just conclude. So you can see that there's a lot of opportunities for peacemaking in diaspora, and that Hizmet has taken these opportunities. Many Armenians, Kurds, and Jews have responded positively to the outreach that Hizmet has carried out. But, not all, okay? I have up there, not all. The idea to sacrifice unconditionally to help others is quite central. to the theology fueling this movement. Hizmet does support minority rights and communal activities or identities, and doesn't ask minorities to leave or assimilate as did the Kemalists. For Hizmet participants, pluralism and goodwill towards the other are manifestations of authentic Islamic piety. I'm completely out of time. I thank you very much.